everyone, and welcome back. Take a look at this. This is history. This is floodwater that Hurricane Katrina left in Homestead, Florida, but people did their best to get on, go with their business, certainly after the storm. Homestead, Florida picked up more than a foot of flooding rain from Hurricane Katrina.
And that's where the Katrina was a Category 1 storm. Look at some of these totals here. Marine, Florida, 18 to 20 inches. Homestead, again, 13.4 inches. Key West, nearly 10 inches of rain. And over 8.5 in Marathon Key, and even Miami, over 4.5 inches of rain from a slow-moving Category 1 storm. Now we have still a slow-moving Category 3 storm out there. With
the expectation of it to become a Category 4 on Monday along the central Gulf Coast when it's expected to come ashore. So this is just quite a monster. You know, the Weather Channel, of course, here to keep you safe and keep you ahead of the storm as well.
Stephanie Abrams is in Gulf Shores, Alabama, monitoring preparations in that area.
Well, the sun is shining here in Gulf Shores, Alabama, but check out the Gulf of Mexico. It usually looks like a lake out here, and I'm not kidding you, people. It usually looks like a lake. Very quiet, very calm, but look at that surf, and it's actually been picking up in intensity as we've been heading throughout the day today. And with that said, we're actually are under a high risk here for a rip current, so they're trying to get people out of the water. And what they're doing is at the lifeguard stands, they're putting up the red flags. The red flags, of course, mean danger, but the question is, what else does the red flag mean? Here's the answer.
We're putting the red flags out. The surface picked up quite a bit from, I suppose, from the hurricane since it's out there. So we're putting the red flags up. The city has a law. The one they're up, there's nobody's allowed in the water on the public beaches. So we're putting those up to kind of help protect the public and keep people out of danger.
So with that surf kicking up, we're already kind of starting to feel the effects of Katrina, and we will, of course, see those conditions deteriorate as we head throughout the rest of the weekend. From Gulf Shores, Alabama, I'm meteorologist Stephanie Abrams.
Let's get right into the Gulf of Mexico, still tracking and monitoring the path and the progress and the strengthening of Hurricane Katrina. The yellow line shows its path. Came on shore around the Miami-Dade and Broward County line just south of Fort Lauderdale Thursday evening around 6:30 p.m. Moved across the state throughout the night and into early Friday morning. Moved back in the Gulf of Mexico, back over open water, and continued to strengthen. It was a Category 1 at landfall, weakened briefly for a few hours to a tropical storm, and then a Category 1 back over the Gulf waters, up to a Category 3 now, eventually turning to a Category 4 storm. And you can see over the last, say, 12 hours or so, our path has moved more towards the west and now kind of jogging just slightly north of due west. And this is the first signs of this storm turning on towards the north. Taking a look back when it made landfall again Thursday evening, we felt wind gusts. We're talking about 95 miles per hour in Key Biscayne, Port Everglades, 92 miles per hour, Miami, 86 miles per hour, even Fort Lauderdale, 82 mile per hour wind gust. And that was Thursday. What about Friday? It's moved back over open water in the Gulf of Mexico. We're talking wind gusts over 100 miles per hour in the Dry Tortugas. The Dry Tortugas is actually just west of Key West and Key West Harbor. 86 mile per hour wind gust there. Even the airport, 74 mile per hour wind gust in Marathon Key. 51 mile per hour wind gust. Again, here are the latest coordinates. If you're tracking this, we're expecting a 7 o'clock Central Daylight Time update coming up probably within the next hour, so probably around, say, 6:50 local time, we should have hopefully new coordinates and the strength. I wouldn't be surprised to see this number continue to go up throughout the night and definitely into your Sunday as well. Here's the path. This is what we're forecasting. Again, the turn to the north already slowly trying to happen, a little jog to the north over the last couple of hours. That will continue to turn more towards the north throughout the day on Sunday and Monday, make landfall somewhere in the Gulf Coast. We're talking about from eastern Louisiana eastward, including you into the New Orleans area, across the coast of Mississippi and Alabama. The good news is Panama City looks like the direct landfall, well, shouldn't be a problem for you, but indirect effects still being felt all across the Gulf states, even the west coast of Florida in terms of rip currents right on through the weekend. Now, again, here's the bottom line. This is a serious storm, and it will continue to strengthen as we head over the next, say, 36 to 48 hours, making landfall sometime on Monday. And the impacts, again, not limited to the coast. We're talking about a lot of rain moving well across the southeast for several days for the beginning of next week. Alexandra?
All right, thank you, Paul. Well, for many along the Gulf Coast, now is the time to prepare, and for others, it's the time to clean up. Still ahead, we'll show you what the forecast holds for the next 7 days in your weekly planner.
Katrina coverage continues here on the Weather Channel, Hurricane Central.
And good afternoon from the Gulf Coast here. We are in Biloxi, Mississippi, where people are making preparations and eventually are just going to have to get out of harm's way. Right now it's a voluntary evacuation. When will that become mandatory? We'll try and give you some insight on that coming up on a live report.
Well, there is a lot of anxiousness right now as we focus in, of course, on Hurricane Katrina. Hi, everyone, and welcome to our expanded and extended coverage of the hurricane on this Saturday afternoon. Thanks for joining us. I'm Alexandra Steele.
And I'm Paul Goodlow. Katrina is now a major hurricane, Category 3 storm, the third major of this very busy and historic tropical season.
All right, let's take a look at it, where it is and where is it going. Here's a look at Hurricane Katrina. Its winds now 115 miles per hour. You can see its center of circulation 380 miles southeast of the mouth of the Mississippi River. And it's moving west at 7 miles per hour. Important to note, though, it's lost that southerly component. And Paul, talk about the path.
That's right, a high pressure, well, out to the east, and we're talking about a trough in the west. That will help turn this storm more towards the north over throughout the night tonight and tomorrow, eventually making landfall sometime on Monday along perhaps the Louisiana coastline. Also, talking about the Mississippi coast, even the Alabama coast. And Biloxi, Mississippi is one of those places in that target zone for potential landfall. In fact, we've sent our colleague, Storm Tracker Jim Cantori, and he's joining us live tonight from Biloxi, Mississippi.
You know, and Jim, you drove there from Miami yesterday. Talk about the roads. What were they like? Were you in a lot of company?
Well, I tried to get a little sleep from that, guys, to be honest with you, so I wasn't really paying too much attention to the roads. But, you know, it's just a hot, miserable drive. And, you know, Alexander, you bring up kind of a good point, because here we are. We actually went to Palm Beach, flew to Tallahassee, drove from Tallahassee. It was about a 4-hour drive for us. But it was hot. I mean, the sun was shining. I mean, the traffic obviously wasn't that bad because there's no evacuation going on. But think about when you have to evacuate. If you got to sit in traffic 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hours in the middle of a sun, which very well could be the case tomorrow, especially about midday when that heat index is 105 degrees. So you need to have that car prepared as well as yourselves when you get out of harm's way, because it's going to be a rough one out there for some people as we sit in traffic. Do not, if you are evacuating Mississippi, go west. We want to give those people in Louisiana as much room as they need to get close to 2 million people out of New Orleans and those lower parishes. That's the key right now, because it just takes too long to evacuate that area, and regardless if they get a direct hit or not, we need to get people out of harm's way, so we need to make that point. All right, we talked a little bit earlier about how interesting things are around here as far as a mandatory evacuation is concerned. We have a mandatory evacuation that has not been issued yet, but there's also an interesting caveat that goes into evacuations here, because the Gaming Commission also has to kind of chime in. The Gaming Commission controls places like that behind me. That's the Treasure Bay Casino. And what they say is, okay, well, you guys have issued a mandatory evacuation, so then they have to kind of either agree with it and say, all right, well, we're going to shut down the casinos, or wait a little while longer. Now, for example, during Dennis, what they did was that they actually said, all right, mandatory evacuation, we're going to shut down the casinos. And that allows, A, the people to get home and out of harm's way, and B, the city also has to come in and disconnect a lot of the piping and whatnot. Because, I mean, look at this. We're right on the Gulf with this thing, and we have to kind of get all the water shut down, or you'll just ruin the facility. Think about what it takes in there, too. You got money, you got machines that are worth millions of dollars, and certainly to the economic wherewithal here in Mississippi, that is a huge, huge issue out there. You've got to protect as much as you can of a casino like that, because that's where the big money comes in. So that's what they're going to try and do, obviously. So the sooner they shut down those casinos, the better. Let's check out the forecast for Biloxi. Here's what you're going to be dealing with here if you will be preparing and evacuating in southern Mississippi. Looking like sunny skies tomorrow, hot, 93. Heat indices will be over 100 degrees again, like they were today. Thunderstorms, perhaps in bands, will begin to develop later on in the afternoon. And the surf, unlike what we have today, will become much more dangerous. So expect a lot more wave action. If you've been watching Stephanie Abrams off to my east in Panama City, the waves are enormous coming in there. Well, guess what? We're going to have some of those waves coming this way tomorrow. On Monday, this is it. Windy, rainy, hurricane conditions. Temperatures right around 88 degrees, and hopefully by the time all is said and done, we will be able to recognize everything that we're looking at here in Biloxi, Mississippi. So that's what we're talking about. A major hurricane coming this way. I hope it weakens, and I hope I'm wrong. But I got a bad feeling about this one. Paul and Alexander, back to you.
Well, Jim, again, the Biloxi area got pretty close to Hurricane Dennis last month and also last year. Ivan came very close as well. Are you still seeing people recovering from those storms right now?
Well, the last hit that they took from a hurricane, as far as like the center coming very close here, was George back in '98. There were some issues with Dennis, mainly with flooding. but nothing like what we could be talking about with this hurricane. Again, Dennis went to the east of this area. Again, it landfalled at Navarre Beach, so they were well on the western side of it. And even though that was the stronger side, you're talking about a storm that was starting off in the day, Paul and Alexander, as a Category 4 in the morning, and it weakened to a weak Category 3 upon landfall. It's a big difference than a storm that potentially could be strong and getting even stronger upon landfall. So something we're very concerned about here with this storm, not to mention it going to our west as opposed to 100 miles off to our east. A lot of caveats with this one, guys. A lot of caveats. Talk to you.
All right. Thank you very much, Jim. We'll get back to you again. So Biloxi, Mississippi, I heard Jim say head east, not head west. Let New Orleans handle their own flow of people.
Right. Unfortunately, we are still calling for a Category 4 storm at landfall. Right now, we do have hurricane watches up from intracoastal city, Louisiana, eastward, all throughout the eastern coast, Louisiana, across the Mississippi coast, including Biloxi, and into the Alabama coast to the Alabama-Florida border.
And of course, hurricane watches, meaning hurricane conditions are possible within the next 36 hours. New Orleans, you're under one. Lake Pontchartrain, you're under one as well, because these places could get underwater because they're so low in elevation.
Exactly. Bottom line, folks, is this is a serious threat to life and property. If you're under evacuation, take precautions and get out.